Hello, everyone. Hi. Today we're doing the reading series, the faculty reading series, meeting the Indiana Chitlin Circuit. And so all that means is that it's a little bit crazier in how the format goes. I want it to be like kind of like a juke joint kind of thing, but it's not that at all. Um, but in the first part, what we'll do is we're going to have a round robin, and we're going to do that for a few minutes, and we'll just be feeding off of each other. So Mark will do a poem, and Sarah will be like, "Oh, I got a poem for that." Then she'll come up, and we'll have that feel for 15 minutes. Then the featured poets will come up one at a time. They'll have 20 minutes, and then at the end, we'll read a poem together by Mary Oliver. Um, and the reason I thought of this and the reason this came about is it feels it just reminds me of the old Chitlin circuit where black musicians at the time couldn't play, in premier places or couldn't play in white establishments, so they had to go to make up these juke joints and stuff like that. And there was a chitlin circuit that you went to Kansas City, Chicago, all these different places, and you played, and everybody knew where to go. And these were some of the only places too that even though there was Jim Crow laws, that you had white and black musicians playing together, even though people didn't, they didn't know that. And these were the after-hour joints, so to speak. So if you were at a juke joint or after-hour place, that's why, and somebody can get cut or shot or whatever, and but the music and the food is brilliant, brilliant. Okay. All right, so we're going to start. I want to start first by saying thank you for being here. And I want to thank all the people that are involved in this, the English and Linguistics Department, COAS, IPFW, Cookie Cottage for the crack cookies. And they probably hate that, but they're good and they're addictive. So that's why we call them crack cookies. We love you, Cookie Cottage. And I'd like to thank Mark, for coming from Ball State here. He's just like in and out because he has things to do, but I'm so glad he's coming because we did get to use his book Dirty Bomb in one of my classes, and it's a great book. And I got to meet him. Was it in Kentucky or Tennessee that we met?
That was
I can't.
Kentucky, wasn't it?
Kentucky,
Yeah.
yeah, and we got to,
Louisville, yeah.
yeah, we got to sit down and talk to each other, and we were in this crazy place where they had some crazy good food that was really, really good, and I remembered him, and then we just kept in touch, and when the time came, I was like, I'm going to teach you a book. Are you okay with that? Would you like to answer the questions? And he's like, yeah. Can I come down too? I was like, yeah. Uh, I hate people coming down and not paying them, so this is another thing is if it's just gas money or whatever, put a little money in your pocket so you can do your thing, kind of thing. So I'm glad he's here. I'm glad Sarah's here. Well, she's always here. We always see her. She's always walking around, so she's
Just like that.
so I'm glad she decided to do this. And I just kind of want to open up the series and have just kind of do some stuff off kilter here and there. So I'm going to introduce them now, and then we're going to have Mark start the round robin. Sarah Sandman is the founding editor of the Dandelion Review. Sarah is a poet and essayist. Her work has been published most recently in Map Points and the Tavern Lantern. She has a forthcoming book from Finishing Line entitled The Sinew of 47 Years. She is currently working on a book length project of short essays. Her chapbook, I Speak Moan, is available through Finishing Line Press. Get it, get it, get it. It's beautiful. Sarah is passionate about many things, including making space for voices that are often not heard or just not heard enough. She has always wanted to help people get their writing into the world and spends much of her time in the classroom teaching creative writing at IPFW. She lives in Fort Wayne with her partner and her dog. She drinks too much coffee, and she has dandelions in her yard. And you can see her whole array of drinks. Coffee is not even up there, so we don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be crazy. It's gonna be crazy, yo. Okay. Next, we have Mark Neely. He's the author of Dirty Bomb and Beasts of the Hill, both from Oberlin College Press. His awards include an NEA Poetry Fellowship and the Indiana Individual Artist Grant and the Field Poetry Prize, which are really, I wish I had those. So please give a welcome to our featured guests, Mark and Sarah. So let the festivities begin. Round robin.
Hi, everybody. I'm really happy and proud to be on the Chitlin circuit. And nobody's going to get cut. At least I'm not going to cut anybody. So thank you to you both for having me. It's really great to be here. I'm just down the road at Ball State, so it's nice to see what's going on in Fort Wayne. And yeah, I really appreciate you bringing me up here. So I was going to read, I have this book called Dirty Bomb that came out last year, and I was going to read the first poem. I was like, they're not going to, I have to explain too much. So I'm going to read the second poem, and it's called Solomon's Wisdom, and Solomon's super wise, obviously, but also he loves horses. He had I think 40 stables of 40, I don't know. I can't remember. He had a lot of horses. And so it starts with a line about Solomon, and it's basically about the speaker's kind of sitting around remembering his ex-girlfriend. Solomon's wisdom didn't keep him from pining for sleek horses. So how am I, with no direct warnings from above, to keep my mind off you in the bar mirror 15 years ago? Ice pouring from the sky behind you, back when we still believed in winter, in benevolent bartenders and Peter Buck, believed no harm could come to us from drinking Bass with Bush Mills and watching hipsters flaunt fake fur and silver by the orange space heaters, until we were thrown out into a frozen park where the glassy trees reminded us, wrapped brightly in their misery.
Okay, this will have to do. Living in gray matters, a pattern. 1. I am breathing in the days of Nafras about unarmed boys called vultures with busted wings. I am not carrying them from point A to point B. I am not depleting their airwaves, redacting them out. I am not calling them non-beings. They are dying on video before us, giving up the last holy word. I am marked with an Ida bewailing, a James Cameron keloid memory, or the two-faced science of drapetomania. We watch drama, how we commingle with our air, but still visualize one losing his breath. I hate being a body limped into non-breathing, or the last funneled breath taking on a match, no fire to name. So question the above. How many breaths does it take to own a full life? What does the last gasp of one person freed into the sinuses of the living taste like? A backwash reflux wafting, rattling in the living's throats? When one is readjusted, who does one call to subdue the readjuster? The people with badges readjusting in broad daylight? Oh, there's good badges, readjustees who'll fight readjusters. But in the gray coals, we all look alike. We all add more heat, more sparks and spikes, more dotting infinite eyes, more punctuating news events for how to puncture what's relevant. So, question, what is relevant in jotting down our daily injuries on sticky notes? When shall our eyes witness my breaths, your breath, and our breaths are holding cells to life? When shall we see choking a soul out of one ashen body only releases that soul back into every living thing? 2. I am writing through cloudy hallucinations, broken words scattering on lined expectations. My words have turned itchy, become anxious for a cipher's punctuation, for a phlebotomist of capitalization over the status quo of capitalizing. I am breathing in the slashing of my T's, the non-dotting of my I's, like it's a negative 10 degrees below air confiscating my breath, like I'm downhilling, tubeless. I'm crashing into a sentence, a line, a paragraph, a stanza, moving from its feet.
Guys are a little short. 2. If salt were turquoise, I'd mix it with rhododendron petals and sprinkle them on your gallbladder void, whispering alphabetic numbers, kissing your tender flesh with my wearied lips. Snow moss and Virginia worm fences cover the fields where battle killed the husbands and sons. She told us about 1961. No blacks allowed. A hawk flies low. What would I do without you? No blacks allowed. No, not without you.
I have such a great poem that goes perfectly with those two poems, but I didn't bring it. I'm kicking myself. I think those poems are both kind of about the anxieties of the political situation at various times. So this is a poem about the anxieties of the political situation when I was a kid, and it's called Ronald Reagan. Oh, sorry. So there's a guy named Bruce in these poems, and he has a dog named Ghost. Ronald Reagan. The squirrels in the wall vex poor Ghost, who sniffs along the baseboards with a mix of joy and anxiety Bruce recognizes from his own pursuit of things beyond his reach. He wants more than he'll ever get, a scrappy nation trying for the bomb. In 5th grade, Bruce knelt under his desk, laced his hands over his neck, and prayed our missiles would incinerate the Russians first. He wrote a story about a boy who rises from a smoldering city and becomes king of the new red world, of everything we have destroyed.
Okay, maybe I just do this. Okay. Saturday morning, starfish and coffee, thinking on Prince. Once I saw a captured spider dropped inside a toilet bowl. When it hit that cool water, a magical blossom of little spiderlets from inside a mother's unseen sack. How the plop sounded like a Friday night gunshot. How they scattered like Chi-Town kids do when someone yells gun. How they all twirled like some circular cavalcade around Esther Williams in the film Neptune's Daughter, until there was nothing left after the funneling hurricane but whiteness and water, and a voice that said, like an offstage Poseidon, who never thought until that moment, what were the children's chances in their first minute to this thing called life?
Dying father. Prophecy is old thread, beaten up, italicized in the Times, spun on Fox until all you hear is Doomsday 2012 or 16. You wish this world, this haze, this Twitter friend text me mafia would die off, would turn dreamlike, would rest by your quiet angst. Prophecy is tomato soup can and vulgar stream of consciousness. Prophecy is mime and copy and mimic, and doomsday keeps coming back in my head. When all I want is a sunflower, painted or real, taller than not. Don't you see you're dying each time you don't know what I say? Each time you vomit from the past? The Cold War happened, okay? Don't you see? I don't get to prophesy anymore. You did it. McCarthy and Pinko, just a little red. What's left for me? I want to write all night, but the paper is running low. The pen is out of ink. My eyes blur with repressed memories of Japan, Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran. I can't go on. My best friend drowns in medical bills. A sick gallbladder removed. The thought of her death, fuck it all. Take the apocalypse because her death would smother my keep living will. The bills stacked, too much to pay because she can't afford. You can only eat macaroni for so long. For undeliverable mail only. Over and over, all I can hear and see is Allen and Rockland, union of wandering souls wrapped in billowing cigarette smoke, wishing for hash or pot or hash or pot. Can't you see I'm dying here? But no, just wait, just wrong. I won't give in to the beatings, rapes, torture, poverty, hunger. I won't give up to the whatever you want insert here. This isn't a time for bending over, sucking out, blowing in. This isn't a time for kissing feet and thinking ass. This is a time for holy, unadulterated spirituality. Pray to your God, my tree, my pen, my sun. And yes, my friend, the sun rising is God.
This is another Bruce poem, and he's driving in the winter. It's called Bruce in Orbit. Red faces float across his mirrors, the snow severe. The radio, blotty, blotty blahs. Crazed jihadists packing nightmares in their Calvin Kleins, oil blackening the Gulf, the president, another useless millionaire. Bruce skids down a slope, tires spinning anxiously on the ice. Somewhere summery, two beautiful actors name their kid after a minor planet. The president helicopters into paradise. Bruce's dying father's in the hospital again. He twists the wheel and the car shoots joyously into traffic. Gravity takes over.
This is called Gangster Love for all the Jean-Michel Basquiats, and kind of Jean-Michel kind of feels like Bruce. I wouldn't want to know you on drug days when you were in a stupor of dumb thought and I had to clean you up. Take off the pissy pants and underwear, the vomited on t-shirt your moms gave you that's too little, but it's love. The discord of language you spat out like a Tourette-induced aggravation. I wouldn't want to know you on the mad days where you throw paint against old canvases and let the music of Vivaldi or Grandmaster Flash push you into locomotion because critics critiqued you all wrong. I wouldn't want to know the man who couldn't put the love on his woman and was always kicked to the curb with her abusive foot to the groin reverberations of letdowns. And on any given moon, I would sit by the bed while you slept off the voices, look into world of your paint splatters, love you back to raw. He has a moon.
All good things come from the moon. I used to believe I would name my daughter Delia, after Kenneth Rexroth. Her name would mean broken stanzas and a painted narwhal over her bed. But now I can't help but see lava and fish scales, a desiccated corncob that is really a 600-pound grouper. Instead, I will name my daughter Luna, because all good things come from the moon.
Mark Neely, everyone.
Thanks again. It's really great to be here. Thanks for coming. Nice to see all the friendly poetry faces. So I kind of jumped into the Bruce stuff, but I'm going to go back and read 2 poems from this book, which came out last year, and then I'll read some poems from this new book, well, manuscript, I call it, that I'm working on. So this is called I Want the Internet to Stop, and it makes a really quick reference to this film called Harvey, which was one of my dad's favorite movies, and it's about this guy, Jimmy Stewart plays him, and he's like a deluded town drunk guy who believes that he's best friends with a giant rabbit, whose name is Harvey. He's a puka, actually, but a giant rabbit works better. And it's my dad's favorite movie, so it's in this poem. I want the internet to stop the noise, the bathroom sink dripping like an old clock, when my son climbs in bed and burns my arm with the hot crown of his head. I want to filter out these nightly terrors, to sing the proper hymn or prayer to bear me up to the top branches of 1977, visible only to those who art in heaven. I want the internet to simulate my father, smoking Winstons at the kitchen table, or sinking in his black chair to watch Jimmy Stewart spill from his bar stool as the blue shades darken. I want to see that scene a million times, to feel his shaking hand on my back when I can't sleep. All right, so we've been pretty serious here, so this one's a little bit silly. It's called More and More, and it starts out with 2 probably ill-advised insomnia cures. Actually, one of them works really well. More and more. More and more I fight for sleep. I read Milton, that's the one that works, or drop a Valium in a shot of bourbon. But Lycidas tends to kill me quicker. Then I snap awake at 4 a.m., Google my college girlfriend, and find her on the steps of an expensive Chicago townhouse with her blonde husband, who looks like a low-level Nazi or Danish prince. I can only console myself with this fact. Scientists predict blondes will be extinct in 100 years. I hate this Googling. It used to be you could move away and make old girlfriends disappear. And why does Google always win? What about all the other search engines yearning to be verbs? I refuse to Google you, my nurse. I'd rather Yahoo like we used to. In your attic apartment, our shadows on the wall like Kurosawa's samurai. But the sleek and mathematical beats out the sensual every time. The present always drags the past into the future. And here's another thing. The blondes aren't dying out. I Googled blonde extinction and found out it's a hoax. Blondes, in fact, will live forever. For the blondes in the audience, it's not you, it's me. I mean, really, it's me this time. Okay, so I'm going to switch to a few poems from this new manuscript that I've really been immersed in, so I'd like to read some of these. And they're about this guy named Bruce. He's just kind of an ordinary, boring Midwestern guy. I don't know where I got that from, but that's what I'm writing about. And he has a voice inside his head, like we all have that voice inside our heads that tells us, like, we're not good enough, or you're not doing the right thing, or you shouldn't have said that thing you said yesterday. I think you can hear that voice probably. And he calls his voice the murmur because it's always kind of murmuring at him. And you'll hear that voice in this poem. This is called Reality TV, and it's about the rugged outdoorsy reality shows, like Alaskan bush people and stuff like that. And the one it starts talking about, at the beginning of the poem, it talks a little bit about noodling, which is like pulling giant catfish from rivers with your bare hands. And there's actually 2 reality shows about noodling, believe it or not. The one I'm thinking about is called Hillbilly Hand Fishing. And Bruce is like kind of fascinated with this thing, but also feels very far apart from it. You know, he feels like it's an exotic thing to him. So this is reality TV. Bruce believes in everything, even the fat Arkansan shoving his pale hand in a river orifice and pulling an oily, boy-sized catfish from the muck. Bruce understands the urge to tangle with a horror-faced primeval beast and win, the urge to suffer the slice of a fin or bar-brawl fist, terrified of feeling nothing. He even believes in democracy, though he knows we are all a bunch of frightened worms tunneling blind and hungry through the precarious earth. On another channel, men live in the wild alone and grow ridiculous beards. One opens a deadfall trap and carries the rabbit home by its lucky feet, its upside-down ears pricked, listening for whatever comes after the tunneling. This is all too much for Bruce. He's embarrassed by his pantry full of pasta and canned fish. "No one can see you, Bruce," says the voice inside his head. So this is another one. It's basically kind of an introduction to like who Bruce is and what he does. He has kind of this weird nebulous job that he goes to, and it's super bureaucratic and boring and frustrating. So this is partly about that. Deposition. A hall of freaks line up outside his door, waiting to bring him their breakdowns. Their inner illnesses astound him, like the blue heron he saw this morning, standing regally in the mouth of a drainage pipe. He keeps his own anxieties at bay with a regimen of leafy greens, black tea, and gin. Every other day he runs 5 miles to keep from shouting at his sulking son or railing at the radio about the environmental catastrophe of consumerism. Today he drives through the Maple Street McDonald's for his monthly quarter pounder. Idling in the park, he watches cruisers and other solitary eaters quell their hungers. A pony-tailed jogger bounces by. Sex is always on his mind. He fears in his case the every 7 seconds estimate might be a little high. He imagines the migrant picking cucumbers, the feedlot stench, a giant harvester sweeping across Idaho. Pursing his lips around the last swallow of Diet Coke, he rests his head against the sun-warm window, the taste of oil and advertising on his tongue. So I think I'll read one more. It's a little bit longer. And it actually requires a tiny bit of explanation here. So it's called First Blood, and First Blood is the title of the first Rambo movie, which came out in 1982. So many of you have probably not seen this movie, but you don't need to know that much about it. So in 1982, I was in the Cub Scouts, and if you haven't seen it, John Rambo, I think his name, he's a Vietnam vet. And he's kind of lost and wandering around the country. And he goes, the very first scene, he has this really cool knife. I told you no one's going to get cut, but I have brought up knives twice. So he has like a survival knife, and it was like all the rage back then. It has a handle that unscrews, and there's like fishing line and compass and matches and stuff in there. And it's really big. It's like way too big to be useful. But I'm not sure what that's a symbol for, but it's got to be a symbol for something. So at the beginning, this is Sylvester Stallone, by the way, plays Rambo. In the opening scene, he's gone back and he's at this old, like decrepit-looking homestead, and he's looking for a friend of his from the war. And he goes and he's coming down the road, and then you see him, and he goes and talks to this woman and her daughter. And it turns out his friend has died, and she says he got cancer because of exposure to Agent Orange during the war. And that kind of sets him off. Then he's like totally alone, so he just wanders off, and then he gets in all kinds of trouble and bad sheriffs, and it's worth a watch. it's worth a watch. The end is terrible, but it's the first part is great. So this is First Blood. It really has very little to do with the movie, but I'm glad I got to plug it for you. And it's a sestina, so you'll hear some words repeating. Starting with Rambo, he wanted a knife. Starting with Cub Scouts and scuffed plastic soldiers half buried in mud, starting behind Holy Cross, where a friend slit Bruce's finger and smeared their bloody hands together, where the neighbor girl lifted her shirt. She was older, braver. "Show us your boobs," the friend said, and there was her pale freckled chest. Starting with race, we divide into clans, starting with gifted and stupid, muscled and gawky, girls and boys, starting with money, the haves and have-nots, princes and paupers, starting with blood, kin, and strangers, so not even Jesus can friend everyone, so no one has 6 billion followers. Bruce's friend is a cop in Chicago and does that cop thing with his chest. He says all lives matter on Twitter. Not even the blood of martyrs can satisfy everyone. Starting with status, starting with skin. The cop is biracial, a hyphen American, half someone else. The girl grew up. She lives in Fort Lauderdale with girls of her own. She's in the Navy, not much of a friend anymore except on Facebook, nowhere. We all have our flaws, say the prophets, the movies, the breasts in the mirror. But this cop is being a prick. He's starting to tick everyone off. In First Blood's opening scene, there's no hint of the bloodletting to come. Only a decrepit outbuilding, boys playing, a girl and her mother hanging clothes on a line. The shot starts with Stallone in the distance, unrecognizable, neither friend nor enemy yet. "Excuse me," he says, from deep in his chest. The film's first words, so soft you could easily miss them. He has almost nothing. A sleeping bag slung on his shoulder, has the knife, of course, but it's tucked away, bloody no more, and a flag on his chest from the war. The mother shoos the girl toward the house when Rambo asks after his friend, who it turns out was dead from the start. Begin and begin and begin. With the girl, the knife, the 4 types of blood, family, friendship, period, lung, the sting of all he can't have in his chest. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mark. Next, coming to the mic, Sarah Sandman.
Can you? I know, right? You'd think I could figure that out. Thanks. Thank you all for coming. It's so good to see all of your faces. And thank you, Mark. It's good to see his face. His wife was my professor a lot of times, and so it's sort of like she's here too, and I love it. And of course, Ball State's close to my heart, so I'm so glad that he could be here. I'm going to read straight through. I don't really feel like I'm a good storyteller, so I'm not going to say anything in between. I'm just going to read the poems for better or worse, okay? Did you say 15 or 20 minutes? Okay. Just never. This is not a love letter. This doesn't end with me touching your small breasts or looking into your hazel shifting green, depending on the day, hazel eye. This doesn't end with me holding you close while I hear the rise of your sleeping rib. This just isn't a love poem, not what you think or thought. This is anti-love. This is about all that there wasn't in the space too big to fill. I was only ever perfect. Never, you see. Just never. Once I wrote a surrealist Peruvian ode just for you, and I wanted to slurp you like vegetarian soba noodles, only pausing for, no, not ever pausing. I meant it then, but you, I was just never, never. Love is too abstract. They'll tell me it's been too long for this now, and I'll say, no, it's been just long enough. They'll say, just pick around the chicken and let go. And I'll say, this isn't chicken anymore. You always knew the line, the green and the hazel. That was for you, my past love. Gone, and maybe never had, but gone, yes. I don't eat meat anymore, the rotting flesh hurting my broken back, my lame excuse for humanity. And this is not about love. It's about the mold inside the uncut avocado. And it's about unfilled bellies and dead children murdered for insanity. It's about a black crow and a snowy white owl, about the prayer beads that have always been mine. It's about you kissing the space between my hairline and eyebrow, whispering, you are safe. My tattooed foot says, believe. I was only ever perfect, never, dear M. Dear Rhinoceros, my brown beautiful, maybe I will write a letter in reverse to you, my new love, a woman draped in a gentle tear with a face turned toward hope. My love, dear, I am the color of your nail bed. I will always be whiter than your foot, whiter than the tree-lined circle of your iris. I come from decadent parties and accessories meant to cover and dazzle. Like a drooping dandelion, broken harp string. No, an ostrich in the sand. Hide, hide, dear my love, I am, hide. We curl near on the fuchsia-sheeted mattress. My eyes turn little and I disappear into the count. I stoically stroke your raised goosebump. You cannot contain any more. I tell you, dear rhinoceros, I survived. I touch your chocolate horn, and then you weep like I've never witnessed before. You weep. He still lives by the artificial machine that prompts his heart to beat. I curl closer to you, holding tight the soft underside of your naked arm. I have accepted this life. The sinew of 900 years. An otter holds hands with her mate to keep tethered to the one who helps fight the loam. Salt and whiskers dripping in late-night tumult. I can't escape the salt of this raven call. Incessant chatter since 4 a.m. What possibly is left to say? She writes me 7 letters, each in a different colored envelope. Their words are profoundly handwritten, and I trace the commas. She said I fill the space she's been saving, but for what? She did not know. The guarded hollow meant for something sacred, dandelion-esque, a sheltered Kodachrome. But I am no such thing. I hold all the life of blood and flesh and sweat. She's carved out that place for me from the sinew of 900 years, carved out before she knew bone was salt, before she knew to carve meant to write in the sky with the toenail, before she knew that to care was a phrase learned only on the back of a closed eyelid. The benefit of doubt. Perhaps fibromyalgia, unexplainable body pain, a visit to the quick clinic, no infection found, just a muse of a grief-stricken bladder. Body workers perplexed by persistent inflammation, 5 bulging discs, overly tight hips, shoulders that unhinge when upside down. An inability to cry, usually. Night terrors. A partner who gently holds face after hearing memory. No visible scars from father. 4 foot tattoos. 300 nights per year for at least 20 years, if I give him the benefit of the doubt. It'll get more happy eventually. I hope. You may think I would be happy with this news. I hoped the Chinese restaurant would womb me from talk of the previous life. Maybe the crab rangoon could divert us to a different time. Not my birthday. Not my mother. This story has never been about food. And still slipped in a side whisper, a glance. He only weighs 154 pounds. It only takes that much, don't you understand? It only takes that much, and then not even the sleeping pup pause, the calm in and out of breath of the wet nose. None of that. It only takes one moment to pull me. It's my birthday, and my monster father is disintegrating. Shaking hands at noon. It's like placating a fool, to tell me everything will be okay, that the nightmares will stop. Someday the flashbacks and the tremors and my shaking hands at noon, and someday... But today is not that someday. Today is filled with just one flash, one thought, not of the stacked laundry, underwear thrown in a corner, not of the smell of trash, dog vomit on the rug, not these things. It's like placating a child, telling her that someday she won't need. Today, a reminder that you rewired my DNA. The one thought. I want you inside me, to feel you one last time before you die, to know you love me. This thought, to feel you one last time, the dog vomit on the rug, the smell of trash and shame, the snot running down my face, because today is not that someday. Remembering the Sandy Hook school shooting, December 14, 2012, for the little girl. I wish I knew your name, because you were not listed in the headlines. But if I did, it would all be too real, too horrible, a nightmare of your truth and my dissociated memories. I know that you are 6, and all of your classmates are gone now. Dead. Mommy, I'm okay. I know that you pretended, draped yourself on a pile of other children, playing possum with the crazy motherfucker who lost his mind. I can't think of you very often. I remember you pretended to be dead, 6 years old, the only survivor in your classroom, escaping the building when the angry shooter was gone. My therapist, graying with wisdom, tells me, that girl, that 6-year-old girl, the one who survived, bloody but alive, she reminds me of you. Mommy, I'm okay. The space before his hair begins. His feet kick the speed racer sheets, and I'm reminded, now the aunt and much older, of my own 6-year-old feet, but his, free from the baggage of incest and abuse. He doesn't care about dying. I turn up Carole King. His innocence and curly hair, fuzzy from my fingers, tugging on the tight ringlets, makes my breath catch. He licks his lip until a ring of red surrounds. He sleeps, snoring gently, sweating from the heat of winter, never waking in fear. Sometimes I wonder how he can be so safe. Each time I kiss the space before his hair begins and his forehead ends. Each time he says, I just love you so much. Each time he comes home untouched. I am lucky. Not a murder of crows. 3 dead deer, legs stiff with rigor mortis, litter the highway. None of them hit by me. My aunt has cancer, a rare strain that inhabited her removed uterus, a tumor as big as the baby she never had. She's not afraid of the toxins that may save her. She says she is not sick. I counted crows on the 500 miles home. 12. Not a murder. 1 at a time. Eating bird bones. I dreamt I was eating bird bones, their hollowness crunching like small children's fingers. I kept chewing and chewing, couldn't wake from this mystery of straw. I am not writing to clarify. I am and am not a woman. The call of sparrows wakes me, irritates me. A goldfinch lands on the rusted window, tapping. Iron chipping into my blood. I dreamt I was eating bird bones, which means the bird was hopefully dead. Stealing femurs. Walking next to myself, I realize my identity is liquid, nothing more than external words, nothing more than a mirror. The internal structure of my vertebrate body given away at birth. Mother signed the certificate, strategically taking each femur. I carry guilt in a bottle around my neck, dipping my tongue on the salty rim. It tastes like my missing thoracic cage. One Siamese twin always dies first. The other dies of shock. In her purse, Mother carries my clavicle. One Siamese twin always dies. One Siamese twin always dies first. Sternum learning. I'm sorry for grief. I said that. Mary Oliver. I'm sorry for the indignation which collects in the duct of my liver. As the massage therapist kneads my concave side, I wonder what the pain is. She says, resentment. I'm sorry for that, for the pain that pierces through my hollow. Sternum rises gently like a sleeping child's temperature. She, the massage therapist, touches my chest with one finger, softly. Tears gather. What pain. What pain. Her name is not the one I call her. I call her Mayan priestess with round, flat face, slightly bowed legs, comforting me home to a different time. A non-callous palm brings me back to present, where I ask, what's that? That pain. And she, the Mayan priestess, the massage therapist, looks down at me with eyes that have watched 7 children leave her womb and says, grief, child, it's grief. Someone must take care of the dead. Some words borrowed from a poetry reading that George Calamaris was giving. It's like drowning while still being able to breathe, but not like the agony of leaves, the loose tea screaming out as the near boiling water scalds the blooms and slips down the brick building. My lungs burn 3 times while lilac petals scatter at my feet. These memories are a montage of garfish and crocodiles. I sit in murky bathtub water, black curly hair floating on the surface. With each labored breath, I think, someone must take care of the dead. This thing of gentle opening. I don't know how to do this thing of gentle opening. I have only ever known how to be ripped apart, forced, raped, but this thing so tender. I don't want the past to follow me. I don't want to curl up. I want to pretend that I was not visited by my father's desire for 27 years. I sit across from your beautiful brown as the sun quenches your need for just a little more vitamin D, and my mind is paused. That beautiful brown is like nothing I have touched. I want to trace the curves of the golden and milky. But here I am, all of me. There is no hiding anymore. There is no denying what these eyes have recorded for so long. I wish I could tell you that when he dies, when the oxygen stops, when his heart fails, when there is no more monster, I will be free. But here I am, all of me, not rounded and smooth, just jagged. And I'll end with one more. And 47 years. I knew in the eye blink of sitting across the speckled table that I would fall head over face over ankle bone, fall for the slightly bent neck leaning toward the peeking sun, mouth filled with laughter. I knew right then I would want to marry you every day of my life. For 47 years, I have wished for your tender wrist and bosom. For 47 lifetimes, I have danced near your hip. And each time I knew you, you were meant to fit into the holes left by life's detritus. Come and be near me. Tell me the story of your first word. Hallelujah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Stand around the microphone.
So you can hold it in the middle. And come up. I want us to be close.
Oh, okay, like a doo-wop group.
Yes. And so we can all read off of hers, and so we
Yeah.
can all focus on the mic.
Okay.
Okay, so you're starting.
The Summer Day by Mary Oliver. Who made the world?
Who made the swan and the black bear?
Who made the grasshopper?
This grasshopper, I mean.
The one who has flung herself out of the grass.
The one who is eating sugar out of my hand.
Who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down.
Who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes.
Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face.
Now she snaps her wings open and floats away.
I don't know exactly what a prayer is.
I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down.
Into the grass. How to kneel down in the grass.
How to be idle and blessed. How to stroll through the fields.
Which is what I have been doing all day.
Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
Thank you. Thank you all so much for coming out. I just want to give a few minutes if there's, do a little Q&A if anyone has questions for our featured guest. Yes.
Out of curiosity, what was, like, I know you talked about Bruce a little bit, but what else inspired the Bruce character?
Let me look at these so I can think about that. I wanted to be able to write anything I wanted to. So I wanted to be able to say anything, and I wanted it to be able to say things that were maybe really unflattering about the main character in the poem, and then be able to say, well, it's not me, it's Bruce. And that really was what started it. And then I got really interested in the fact that since this is a made-up person, like, it's not sometimes it has a lot to do with me. Sometimes it's like some version of like my father. Sometimes it's some version of, and also Bruce gets to be like all different things. So I have a poem called Despot where he's like a dictator, and he goes through, this is what Bruce would be if he's a dictator. So like, I love that idea of just having super openness with this character. So that was how it started. I mean, it really started as like, I don't want to say I, because if I don't say I can say anything and not be judged. Although I know that's, there's John Berryman, a famous poet, has this book called The Dream Songs, or long poem called The Dream Songs, about a character named Henry. And he always says, Henry's not me, but of course there's all these like commonalities between them. And of course there are commonalities between an author and any persona. I have a friend who writes about like Charlie Brown, like he writes in the voice of Charlie Brown, he writes in the voice of John McEnroe, and always it's some like amalgamation of those two characters coming together. But thanks for the question.
Again, thank you for coming out.